no matter what kind of organization you're part of, whether it's a business, a nonprofit, a family, a sports team, a church group, a book club, whatever it is, organizations have to work together in teams, and that means meetings, right? So let's talk about meetings. And meetings are often the bane of folks' existence, but they don't have to be. And so let's talk about meetings. Now, a lot of times, what I have done in the past and what I see others do is the first thing that you do is you call the meeting, right? Call the meeting. Because how can you have a meeting without calling it, right? Yes, that's true. But this is not the first thing that anyone should do when calling the meeting. There's a lot of preparation that goes in to making the meeting really worthwhile. And if you want folks to keep coming back to your meetings, they have to be worthwhile and productive and achieve the target that they have. So instead, if calling the meeting is not the first thing you want to do, then what is, right? Here's how I think of it. The first thing that you want to kind of think about if you need to work in a team is the purpose. And even before thinking about the purpose of the meeting, what it is, the purpose is really answering the question of so what? Like, why does this matter? What's the point, right? That's the question it's answering. So what? Now, the purpose is really thinking about something more broadly than the meeting itself. You're thinking about my team is at point A and we want to get to point B, right? Just defining what this arrow is in the middle of we are here and we want to be here, that is defining the purpose. And the key for the purpose, as you think about it, it has to be worthwhile, right? And an example is our team is stuck. We don't know what to do. And we want to get to a point where everyone knows what they're doing so that we can serve our customer. That's something that's pretty worthwhile. Giving a status report, that purpose is not that exciting or interesting to people. Now, if you've defined a purpose, like you've defined a problem that you want to solve, like you are at point A and you want to get to point B, the next question to really ask is, do I even need a meeting to achieve this purpose? Because a lot of times something as simple as, tapping someone on the shoulder and talking to them, or just making a decision and just going and just doing it, or writing an email or whatever, can achieve this purpose and no meeting is required. And the best kind of meeting is a meeting that you don't even need, right? But say you determine that to go from point A to point B, a meeting is actually the best possible route. The next question the next thing one needs to think about is the intended outcome of the meeting, right? And what this is defining is, why are we having the meeting in the purpose in the first place? Why does it matter? What are we trying to accomplish, right? Now, the key thing to remember for the intended outcome is it needs to be simple and clear. And what that can mean is some examples of intended outcomes of a meeting is we want to make decision X. Or maybe the intended outcome is come up with 10 ideas. Or maybe critique and feedback. Now, you want to be very careful of this objective of share information, because most of the time you don't need a meeting to do that. So I find that if I have a meeting just to share information as the intended outcome, got to really, really think carefully about whether that really demands a meeting. Now, after the intended outcome, what you really want to think about is the audience. You want to base the audience on the intended outcome and the purpose of the meeting. So you make sure you have all the right people there and no one extra. And a good benchmark in my head for that is everyone speaks. And if you can look at your audience list for the invite and you think everyone is going to speak, whether in a chat or verbally, or make some sort of contribution, you probably have the right audience of the meeting. And what this is really answering is who, right? Now, the last thing, is the agenda. And this is something that a lot of times people set the agenda without thinking about the purpose, the intended outcome, or the audience. It's very, very hard to come up with an agenda if you haven't already thought about the purpose, the intended outcome, and the audience. Now, what the question this is really answering is what? What's going to happen at the meeting, and how is it going to happen, right? Now, for the agenda, my heuristic for how you know whether you have a good agenda is that there is no fluff. No one likes a meeting where it's meandering and it's not thought through. What you really want to do is think about what's the shortest path to reach your intended outcome. So no fluff. Now, only after that, after you've done all these steps, purpose, intended outcome, audience, and agenda, do you want to call the meeting, right? And when you call the meeting, when you tell people about it, maybe it's in the calendar invite if you're sending it out digitally, or calling people ahead of time, tell them all about the purpose, the intended outcome, the audience, and the agenda, so they actually want to show up, so they actually understand what the point is, why the meeting is happening, and what the intended outcome is, why, and they can see why they have a role in the meeting, and they believe that there's no fluff and it'll be worth their time. Only then, after you figure that out, do you call the meeting and let everyone know about all these wonderful things that you've thought through in preparation. And then, after you call the meeting, you don't just hold the meeting. The whole point is to hit the target of the meeting. Like, a successful meeting is not one that you just hold and go the 60 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it is. A successful meeting is where you hit the target in the intended amount of time, right? The whole point is achieving the purpose and the intended outcome. That's the measure of success. So when you have a meeting, don't focus on running the meeting, focus on hitting the target that you have established early, right? So just to recap, meetings are part of life in organizations, and great meetings are ones that leave people feeling energized and they're purposeful. And what most people do is they first call the meeting and then figure everything else out. That's precisely not what you want to do. That's one of the last things that you should do in the cycle of preparing for and running a meeting. What you want to do first is establish the purpose, the point A that you're at, and the point B you want to get to. You can then quickly establish, is meeting even the right way to achieve that purpose? And if you need to meet, define the intended outcome, make it simple and clear, define the audience, make sure everyone is going to want to speak and has something to say, because that's how you know you have the right people there. Then come up with an agenda that has no fluff at all. And once you get to the meeting, you'll be so prepared and you can just focus on hitting the target of the meeting instead of just passing the time.